Welcome back, everybody. It's the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast brought to you by Reality Sports Online. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. You can follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. Today on the show, we're going to be doing buy lows for Dynasty Leagues. And of course, to do that, we have my co-host, my partner in crime here at Fantasy Pros, Pat Fitzmaurice at Fitz_FF. Fitzy, how was your weekend? How was the summer treating you?
Oh, pretty good, Boggs. Excited to get back into football season, of course. Like, summer doesn't start until training camps open, but, sneaking in a little bit of golf before things get hot and heavy with the fantasy coverage. All good, man.
Getting the golf in, enjoying the sun while it's out, of course, there in sunny Chicago. And to do this show with us today, we have a guest, Nate Polvogt from IBT Media, In Between Media. You're a feature writer here at Fantasy Pros and Trophy Smack. Nate, thank you so much for joining us here and going over some buy lows with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here. Never really thought I'd ever be on this show. So here I am with guys I've listened to forever. It's awesome.
Hey, look, man, if I'm here, there's definitely room for you, right? So that's what I say. So
well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So, how's the summer treating you? Do you like overreaction season in the summer and training camp right now before the preseason, or do you hate it? Do people get more out of it, or do you think it clouds things more?
I think it's a time filler because we're all just bored and wishing that there was football. So we take things and we go worst case scenario or best case scenario with something, and it's fun to talk about. But once training camp starts, it all kind of comes crashing back down.
Yeah, that is the truth. So, and, we had some injury stuff today as well. Tim Patrick going down. We've had a couple guys tweak things here and there. So, it's hard to know. You get some positives, but you also get a lot of negatives in this time. So it's tough to know. But we're going to go over some buy lows coming up here. Before we get into the show, I got to remind you guys we have a giveaway right now for Christian Watson autographed jersey. All you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasypros. Take a screenshot, submit it to fantasypros.com/dynasty contest. That's fantasypros.com/dynasty contest. And you're entered in to win it. Do it as soon as possible because this contest ends at the end of August. So you have some time now. Might as well get it out of the way. Go and try to get yourself that jersey. Also, remember fantasypros.com/chat where we have all of our Discord. It's free to enter, but premium Fantasy Pros subscribers get a whole bunch of other perks like dozens of extra channels, regularly scheduled AMAs, and interactive voice chats with our analysts. Want to talk fantasy whenever you want or chat with Fantasy Pros analysts? Just check out our Discord at fantasypros.com/chat. Again, that's fantasypros.com/chat. Now, we're going to be going over some buy lows. So, Nate, you're the guest. I'm going to let you start. Before you name a player, though, I want to know, what are you looking for specifically? Is it, because buy lows can mean a lot of different things. It could be they're coming off a bad year and you're buying them low. They're at their lowest value you think they're going to have for a while, so you want to buy them low. A lot of rookies fall into that. A lot of aging guys are buy lows because people, the falling knife and all of that good stuff, they want to get out before the guy gets low. So is there a certain parameter that you like in buy lows, or is it just, hey, look, I'll take any kind of buy low?
I'll take pretty much any kind. It doesn't really matter because if it's a move where I can spend less and get more for my team, that's always going to be a win, whether it's a rookie, a veteran. If you're talking about a guy like Tom Brady that you can get pretty cheaply in Dynasty right now, because we all know he's probably not playing in 2023. But if I'm in win now, boom.
Yeah,
I can win in 2022 with him, and I spent not a ton.
He also led the league in passing yards last year still. So, Tom Brady, the GOAT of GOATs, whenever he goes out, even if it's at 50, he's probably going out on top, which is just insane. So, all right. So I will hand it off to you and give us your first buy low for the Dynasty offseason here.
So this is a guy I was aggressively targeting in rookie drafts last year, but I was getting him later in the beginning, like third, fourth round. Value kind of started to move up. But right now, his ECR in Dynasty on Fantasy Pros is running back 36. Rhamondre Stevenson is a guy who I really, truly believe, given the opportunity in New England, has a chance to finish as a running back one-tier player, one of those top 12 guys. they've indicated in camp that there's a good chance he's going to be the lead back, that he may have overtaken Damian Harris. If he can get some of that receiving work, I think there are a lot of things that have to go right, but that could very well go right. If you're getting him at a running back 36 price and he finishes in that RB1 tier, I mean, that's a steal, even if it's next season and you're getting him at that price. It doesn't necessarily have to be this season, though I think it will be.
I worry a little bit about Rhamondre Stevenson, Fitzy. And, look, just let's be transparent. I got Texas stuff hanging up behind me, and Rhamondre Stevenson is a former Sooner. So not the best, maybe I'm a little biased here, but what I remember from Rhamondre Stevenson is, first of all, like Nate said, unbelievably talented guy. Like, you can see out of the running backs on this roster, he probably is the best running back there. I don't think there's much argument. But Damian Harris is unbelievably solid, and he has two things going for him over Stevenson. It is the trust in the staff from last year, not the extensive injury history that I've seen Stevenson have. And I've seen Stevenson get in the doghouse at Oklahoma now and New England. So in terms of talent fits, I think Stevenson is the best RB here. But in terms of, that translating and being trustable and all that stuff, I have a little worry. So I'm not quite in on the Stevenson bandwagon, but I know it's a camp that has been improving with Nate as the leader here. So what do you think about Stevenson and him being a buy low, Fitzy?
All right. Well, the doghouse stuff, Boggs. I mean, at Oklahoma, that was all about pot. They really tried to bury him for pot, and no one.
That's stupid. Yeah,
it is. And,
but it's also like, it's one of those things where,
you should know better.
It's
sure.
a rule,
Sure.
just do the rule. It shouldn't be that hard.
So I know our buddy Nate's out in Colorado, so he doesn't care about that. So, but and then last year, man, I mean, he got in the doghouse for coughing up a fumble on I think it was his second NFL touch.
Yeah.
And then healthy scratch the next 3 games. But after that, he came back and I think he averaged, once they started activating him again, 12 carries a game for the rest of the season. Considering that Damian Harris was there, that's a pretty good share of the workload. And I know my guy Joe Dolan at Fantasy Points had the Boston Herald's Patriots beat writer Andrew Callahan on his beat writer tour podcast. And Callahan predicted that Rhamondre Stevenson was going to ascend to be the top guy in that backfield. So, and Boggs, you also mentioned the Oklahoma background, man. That's when I fell in love with Rhamondre, when I saw him trample, I think it was
Super
Florida
talented.
In the Cotton Bowl. When he was that the big 200-yard 3 TD game or something like that?
It was definitely a bowl game. I remember that. So
I mean, just this big bowling ball with really nifty feet and able to catch passes. I love the skill set. I'm totally with Nate, and I just my only worry about the buy low thing is that buy low window is closing quickly. It seems like everyone is starting to become a Rhamondre Stevenson fan, and I was getting him in best balls in the offseason real cheaply early, and now all of a sudden he's going 7th round. It's man, buy low season is coming to a close quickly. So I agree with Nate, but do it fast.
His final season at Oklahoma, by the way, just to let you know, it was 18 carries for 186 yards and a score against Florida. That was 10.3 yards per carry against Florida, which is just ridiculous. That's an SEC school. And the other games that he played that year, I mean, he only played 6 games, but he had 18 for 97, 26 for 141, 11 for 104, 13 for 87. And he scored 13 touchdowns. Or no, that's his career, excuse me. But that final season, he scored, 3, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns in 6 games. So the talent is there. I will not argue that at all. It's injury stuff, the fumble in the doghouse. There's little worries. Those, skills should win in the NFL, though. We know that. I mean, that's why Deshaun Watson's still in the NFL, right? Skill wins over, bad attitude and stuff like that most of the time. All right, Fitzy, you are up, my friend. Who are you buying low on?
All right, so I don't know about you guys, but I like big, freakishly athletic, fast wide receivers. So when you can get one of those guys at a discount, I'm definitely automatically interested. Chase Claypool is a guy like that, and I think people are just going to shy away from him, or are shying away from him right now, because the quarterback situation is so dicey, and also because Claypool got buried a little bit with Ben Roethlisberger sort of only having eyes for Deontay Johnson. we don't know how that's going to work out. Like, we don't know if Deontay is going to be the target hog to the extent he was with Big Ben. Now that it's going to be some combination or one of Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. So, and Boggs, I'll be especially anxious to get your take on this as a Steelers fan, but Claypool went from 9 touchdowns as a rookie to just 2 last year. So I think like 9 is a lot closer to where he's going to be eventually as he starts getting closer to his prime. Man, give me this dude's size and athleticism. I feel like there's a breakout coming eventually.
I mean, it felt like he broke out his rookie season, and then last year he just went down the tubes. And as you mentioned, Ben Roethlisberger not wanting to get hit and it's time to throw, that doesn't really allow for Chase Claypool to get open deep, right? He wanted the quick hitters to Najee. He wanted the quick hitters to Deontay, and there wasn't a lot of throwing downfield from him. So you should see Chase Claypool involved more. My worry about Claypool, I have 2 things here. Number one, if Deontay gets extended, there's definitely no money for Claypool, so we don't know where he's going to end up in a couple of years when that rookie contract's up. And George Pickens looks outstanding in camp,
yes.
And we've talked about Pickens before. Pickens is another, you know what? He kind of reminds me of Rhamondre Stevenson. He got in the doghouse. He had, most of his stuff was on the field, but he got in the doghouse. He had injury issues as well. But the talent is next level for Pickens. Like, I think if you talk about ceiling, I'd put him higher than anyone, including Deontay, on the Steelers roster. But, Claypool has it in him. Mapletron was his nickname because his relative athletic score was like a perfect 10, just like, he had very similar numbers to Calvin Johnson, and Christian Watson came in and had that as well this year in the combine. So I don't know. I'm lukewarm on Claypool. I recognize the skill, but I think he's going to become very touchdown dependent. But like you said, with his size and his speed, he should be scoring more. Touchdowns can be pretty, fluky though. So Nate, what are your thoughts on Claypool moving forward here?
So when we got to the draft, I thought, okay, we'll see what they do in the draft. I like Claypool. I think, like you said, he's a big physical receiver, gets down the field well. I thought there was a lot of the fact that Ben was trying to get rid of the ball so quickly. He lost out on a lot of targets, plus Deontay. But then they went and they not only took George Pickens, but they took Calvin Austin as well.
Yeah.
So that's 2 wide receivers in the first, I think, 4 rounds of the draft. Obviously, they believe in Deontay Johnson. So Claypool seems to be the guy where it's like, well, I mean,
they also might not re-sign Deontay.
That's true.
That could be in the realm of possibility as well, because they're trying to work through that contract right now.
I just think this is a make or break season for him. If he doesn't show something on this offense, that's why they took Pickens. That's why they took Calvin Austin. I'm afraid he's not going to get the opportunity again. I don't love that offensive line. I think that's going to be an issue for Trubisky or Pickett or whoever's in there, and we might start getting into some of the short dumps again where you're seeing Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, and Pat Freiermuth kind of take over targets in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, left tackle is number 1 on the wish list for next year for the Pittsburgh
How about right
Steelers.
Tackle, man? I mean,
also right tackle. Yeah, you know what? You're right. When you're right, Fitzy, and you are absolutely. I'm kind of hoping they get involved in this Tevin Jenkins deal. Just put him on the roster and see what he can do. But my first one that I'm going to mention here is Michael Carter, the running back from the New York Jets, currently a running back ECR for Dynasty 37. I don't think I mentioned the other 2, by the way, for Claypool, wide receiver 44, 36 at running back for Rhamondre Stevenson. For me, and Michael Carter, and look, I think what mainly the buy low is the fact that Breece Hall comes in here. And look, I'm not going to argue that Michael Carter is better than Breece Hall because he's not. I would say he's behind Breece Hall in everything. But there are plenty of tandems of running backs that we have that work out. We've had Chubb and Hunt last year were 12th in points per game, 21st in points per game. Jones and Dillon were 13 and 36. Zeke and Pollard were 17th and 37th. So you can get a running back 1 and a running back 2 if you're, Cleveland. Let's not expect them to be Cleveland in the running game, right? Let's have them closer to between the Packers and the Cowboys. So a running back 2 and a running back 3 can exist on this team. Maybe Breece Hall is just too good to take off the field. He turns into a Christian McCaffrey level. That's a possibility, but I just don't see that happening. You look at the improvements that this team has done, right? Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Ruckert, Max Mitchell, that's all just through the draft. They signed Uzama, they signed Conklin, they signed Laken Tomlinson, the guard. Vera Tucker is going into his second season. Mekhi Becton comes in shape. And, the team already loves Michael Carter. Matt LaFleur said he already considers him a leader. If you have ever heard him speak at the podium, he puts the team first. He said, hey, look, when I came in, Tevin wanted to teach me. So when Breece came in and he asked me questions, I'm answering all of them. That is the culture that we've built. So he's already respected in the locker room. So he's not going to get nothing here. And this is also a huge factor. The Jets ran the fewest run plays in the league last season, 380. Let's go to the offenses that run this same type of system, right? We have Kyle Shanahan, and the 49ers ran 499 times last year. The Packers ran 446 times out of the same type of offense last season. So, you're not going to get down by 20, 30 in the fourth quarter with this type of offense anymore. You may still have to with this defense because they might give up 50 on the defensive side. But how do you curb that? You keep your defense off the field and you run the ball a little bit more. So I just think Michael Carter is being a little bit underutilized and undersold here. Nate, what do you think of Michael Carter moving forward?
So I was a little nervous when they drafted Breece Hall because I had Michael Carter pretty high on my list of running backs that I was just in love with coming into 2022. Breece Hall concerned me a little bit, but I also don't believe that Zach Wilson is going to be very good this year. I just don't think he's going to hack it in the NFL. I have a thing against BYU quarterbacks. I mean, since Steve Young, what have we had, really?
You don't like Taysom Hill? Come on.
Well, I like him as a tight end, running back, wide receiver, not as a quarterback, to my point. So I think that a lot of what their offense is going to be focused on short routes with Uzama and Ruckert, Michael Carter getting some of those short routes, probably Elijah Moore getting some slot work. Hopefully they can work Garrett Wilson in. I'm a little concerned that we may be a little too hyped on him as well just because of Zach Wilson. But I think that benefits Michael Carter. And I think that, like you're saying, he could finish as a running back 3. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, Fitzy, what do you think? Because I'm on the other side. I do believe in Zach Wilson, but I understand that if he doesn't get it done this year, he is done, at least with the Jets. I mean, we've talked about this. First-round picks they get revived over and over. Trubisky and Mariota are getting shots again this year. It happens all the time. So he would go somewhere, probably Seattle, and, see if he had it, if he sucks with the Jets this year. But I kind of think he could. I think you fix that O-line is the big thing. He had time to throw at BYU. So I think if you do that for him, he'll be able to find success. But what do you think about Michael Carter?
Yeah, that's the sneaky thing about the Jets. I think this offensive line could actually be really good, especially if Mekhi Becton can stay healthy. And Nate does offensive line work for us at FantasyPros. Like, he knows all about that. They've got talent on that O-line, especially inside. So I'm kind of bullish on this Jets offense. Obviously, a lot depends on Wilson. But yeah, man, it was just so weird I was also going to be like really high on Carter and have him on a lot of teams. And then they draft Breece Hall, and that has to cause us to reassess. But maybe we've all knocked Carter down a little too far. Like, he's really sliding in every redraft thing you do. And obviously his dynasty stock kind of went into the tank, but maybe it shouldn't. Maybe, as you say, Boggs, like, this is going to be more of a committee thing than we realize, and that it's not going to be this case of, like Carter basically playing Alexander Madison to Breece Hall's Dalvin Cook. Maybe it's much more of a Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon thing. I mean,
that's the perfect role. That's the perfect role for him, right? Because that's what he had at UNC as well. Uh-huh. So I hope you're right about that. I got my fingers crossed on Michael Carter. Nate, who's your second player you're buying low on in the preseason here?
So my second one is Tyler Allgeier, the rookie running back in Atlanta. I liked his talent, and if you really looked at what the team had before camp started, I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson, and then they signed Damian Williams in free agency. Damian Williams has never really been a starter. He's 30 years old. He's lived his career on spot work. Cordarrelle Patterson, let's be real about this. He's had one outstanding season, and it wasn't even a full season. It was like the first 3 quarters that he wore out. He's 31. Allgeier's the youngest guy on this team at running back. And he's probably, honestly, so far in camp, they've said he's the most talented. And with their quarterback situation, whether we're talking Mariota or we're talking Desmond Ridder takes over at some point, they're going to have to run the ball a significant amount. I think Allgeier, his senior season, he had 276 carries in 13 games at BYU. So we know he can handle a workload, and that was in 13 games. There's something about this situation. Atlanta tells me that he's going to finish as an RB2 this season, and then he's going to have that at least RB2 upside for probably the next 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you squint and you see it easily here. Because my opinion, I think that Patterson should go back to being a wide receiver, right? Because Fitz, you have mentioned this in a lot of shows. Anytime that Patterson is brought up, he wore down so much on those carries in the second half last year. You lose Calvin Ridley. You have a rookie number one and really nothing behind him. You train for Bryan Edwards, which is just not a good spot to be in if you're Atlanta with a quarterback that, people are underestimating. Going from even an old Matt Ryan to Marcus Mariota is a significant drop off, right? So the offense just looks like it needs to go through the run game, and there's an opportunity for Allgeier to be a number one here. So I think Allgeier and Pierce are similar. They're going in the similar range. I like Pierce a little bit just because I really don't like this scenario that we have in Atlanta. There's a little more experience in Pierce than there is Allgeier, obviously, becoming a running back before he came in as a linebacker at BYU. But you can squint and see the upside here, Fitz. What do you think of Tyler Allgeier and buying him low right now?
Yeah, Nate's got a fun love-hate thing going on with BYU over there. He doesn't
hates QBs, likes RBs.
Exactly.
That's a good spot to be in. Right.
But yeah, you guys, that's kind of the point with him that, I don't know how I feel about Allgeier. I'm kind of agnostic about him as a prospect. I'm open to the possibility that he's really good. I know, my guy John Laub really likes him, and John is all over the college game. But I am not very enthusiastic about the other Atlanta running backs. So, yes, there's opportunity. You mentioned it, Boggs. I mean, Patterson just melted down the stretch last year. I think Cordero averaged 2.4 yards a carry in his last 4 or 5 games. So, if I had to handicap this, I mean, I would expect Allgeier to probably be the favorite to lead this team in fantasy points at the running back position. But, I just don't know how I feel about him yet. And I know that, unfortunately, the touchdown upside is probably going to be pretty capped for the next year or two in Atlanta. But
how can all those not go to Pitts in London? Or Mariota running, You
would think, man.
But Allgeier's a bruiser. He could get it done. Fitz, I want to get your guy here, but I got to do a read real quick. By now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract tags, cap functionality, and much more. I think it sounds complicated. It is not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test your general manager skills for free, FREE, in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. Fitzy, who is your second buy low that you got here?
I am not going to give up on Rondale Moore after a disappointing rookie year. And even though I think it was here, Boggs, where I dropped the stat, maybe we were talking about Wan'Dale Robinson, where there's only been one receiver in the Super Bowl era under 5'9" to have a 1,000-yard season. And that was Richard Johnson, who I can't even remember, even though that was only 1989 or something for the Lions. Don't remember him at all. So anyway, man, I mean, what I saw from Rondale at Purdue was just too good. I mean, he was just so productive, broke out as an 18-year-old freshman there, had a huge target share at Purdue, sub 4.4 speed. 97th percentile burst score, 93rd percentile agility score, according to playerprofiler.com. And with Christian Kirk gone now, he's got this opportunity to be the slot guy. Like we've heard Cliff Kingsbury pretty consistently talking him up throughout the offseason. Several occasions, like not just, once at the start of camp, like month by month by month. He's been like talking about a bigger role for Rondale Moore. I know things will get sticky when DeAndre Hopkins eventually gets back from his suspension, but I see a nice opportunity for Rondale to build some momentum early in the season here. And man, I'd love to see him used as some sort of versatile threat, not just running these little routes close to the line of scrimmage so much like he did last year, just all these little flare things, like actually running some routes and getting downfield a little bit and worked into the running game. He's that kind of weapon. So I'm still enthusiastic about him.
The only short guy that Fitz likes, Nate, is Rondale Moore. It is because he loves saying that stat, that one right there of the short guys. And as a short guy, I am offended by it, but it's okay. Look, Rondale Moore, we're waiting for the opportunity for him, right? Like Christian Kirk's gone. Hopkins is suspended. It looks like Christian Kirk, it's a big hit to this offense, but they bring in Trey McBride. They brought in Marquise Brown. So there's these other little factors that chip away at his value. Currently right now, he's going off at wide receiver 53 in ECR, just behind Ridley, Gallup, Kirk, just ahead of Thielen, Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd. Do you think that's an appropriate area for him, Nate? Do you like this buy low? Are you a Rondale Moore guy, or are you just kind of out on him?
I'm kind of indifferent to Rondale Moore. I think that there's a chance that he could break out this season, but also, like you said, Marquise Brown, Trey McBride, they retained Zach Ertz. Hopkins is going to be back after week 6. So we'll see. I think the talent's there, but then Kingsbury's, I don't know. I don't get how he runs that team sometimes.
Neither does anybody else.
Right. So I don't have a lot of Arizona players outside of James Conner really rostered right now for that reason, because I don't know what Kingsbury's doing, and I don't know that we necessarily know what direction he's going to decide to go week to week with this offense.
I think that's a fair argument. Rondale Moore, let me ask you this, and I'll ask both you guys this. Fits you first. Would you trade like a second rounder in a first-year player draft to get Rondale Moore, like that area where you're picking up maybe like a Tolbert, somebody like that? Maybe you're stashing a Mechie, maybe you're stashing, or maybe even like a, Calvin Ridley's one spot ahead of him. Which one of those guys would you rather have on your roster?
Oh, I mean, I think I'd rather have Rondale than Mechie, Boggs. I'm not as big a Mechie guy as you are. A second round pick in 2023. That's interesting. In Superflex, I don't think I'd make that trade. I'd rather have the pick. In 1 QB, I think I would probably make that trade and take Rondale over, what's behind door number 3 in the mid second round in 2023.
What about this year? Would, like, if I offered you Rondale Moore, my Rondale Moore for your Jalen Tolbert? The Tolbert's wide receiver 62, so he is going, at least, maybe not going, but he's at least ranked. I didn't look at ADP, but he's at least ranked behind Rondale Moore.
Really close, man, but I think I'd take Rondale. Like, he was, far more productive in college.
I think I'm a Tolbert guy on that one, but I understand that. Nate, where do you stand on that one?
I'd take Tolbert. I like his opportunity in Dallas. I personally think Dak is long-term a better quarterback than Kyler as well. So,
okay, yeah, no, these are all fair arguments. Rondale Moore could be a possession PPR guy, and I think specifically if we're talking about league types, PPR is where I want to add Rondale Moore to just take the shot to see. But he could hold significant value because that is a high passing offense. My second player here is Brandon Aiyuk. And I think we forget a lot about Aiyuk because Debo had the big year last year. They're transitioning to Trey Lance. We're worried about Elijah Mitchell and Tyrion Davis-Price, Jeffrey Wilson, and how they're going to break this up. Is Kittle going to be back healthy? So nobody really is talking about Brandon Aiyuk. Currently, right now, wide receiver 39 on FantasyPros ECR. And he came into last season with the hamstring injury after having a subpar camp. where he really struggled to start. But the last 8 weeks, the last half of the season, through 2021, he averaged 13.7 PPR points per game, which would have been good enough to move him up to wide receiver 30. So a mid-tier wide receiver 3, somewhere in that area. And let's not forget, Aiyuk was a wide receiver 2 his rookie season in 2020. Wide receiver 19 overall, averaging 15.1 PPR points per game. And to me, the biggest thing here, Fitz, is that we see it kind of feels like Brandon Aiyuk is finally figuring out how to do training camp right now with Trey Lance, because Trey Lance is trusting him, that he's made highlight level real catches every single day. And he seems like, kind of that safety blanket that first year quarterback is looking at. He throws it up to Aiyuk when he's one-on-one, and Aiyuk is making the plays for him now, which is going to translate into the preseason and hopefully the regular season as well. So I think we just might be a touch low on Aiyuk here. Do you buy him as a buy low, or would you kind of leave him on the market?
No, I like this call, man. We got excited about Aiyuk's rookie year, and then inexplicably in the doghouse. And I think that really took people back, like two really kind of unexpected plot lines from San Francisco early last year, where one, Elijah Mitchell being this immensely valuable guy right off the bat.
Because they took Sermon. Speaking of Oklahoma running backs in the doghouse right there.
No kidding, man. And then the complete disappearance of Aiyuk, who after this great rookie year just didn't build on the momentum. And we later found out it was like a legitimate practice intensity complaints that Kyle Shanahan had with him. Apparently he learned from it, worked his way out of the doghouse, and as you pointed out, had a pretty strong finish. So I think like that's kind of the real Aiyuk, the guy we saw in his rookie year, the guy we saw in the second half of 2021. So yes, I agree. This is a good buy low opportunity. And I do think a lot of people, he is a buy low because people are worried about the whole mouths to feed thing with Debo and Kittle.
Yeah, I mean, and that is why I think he is ranked so low, Nate. And curious to hear what you have to say about Brandon Aiyuk here. It's fair. It's a fair argument. Last year, he was losing snaps to Juwan Jennings because Juwan Jennings was practicing harder. And I think the hamstring injury made him mope a little bit and all that stuff. But he really ticked it up in the second half. Looks good in camp so far. What do you think?
So I got burned on this last year, first half of the season. I was really high on Aiyuk. Then all the stuff went down. It's like, okay, I'm never letting this happen to me again. But here we are. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of like Brandon Aiyuk in camp right now. I think that there's a legitimate role for him. And if he doesn't find himself in the doghouse, getting him at the wide receiver 39 valuation, that is kind of a steal for what he's capable of.
Yeah, and I call that, because I've done it a million times, Nate. It's the overcorrection. You're like, you know what? I won't get burned by this guy again. Somebody else will, but it ain't going to be me.
Right.
And then you see the guy 20, 30 spots lower than he's going in ADP, and you're like, can I do this again to myself? Can I put myself through this again? Am I ready to get hurt again by Brandon Aiyuk? I know exactly what you're talking about. I do that as well. Nate, who is your third guy here?
So this one is an interesting one because I wrote this morning before any news had come out from camp at all. I've got KJ Hamler. He's right. Wide receiver 85 is his current ECR. I'm a little lower on Jerry Jeudy than I think everybody else in the world is, mostly because he mainly plays slot. Hackett has never really used a slot receiver. Russell Wilson has never really utilized a slot receiver. But Hamler also plays slot. But the difference is Hamler also gets down the field really, really well and is a superb deep threat with really good hands. And his acceleration is just insane. Almost like Tyreek Hill speed. And I'm not comparing him to Tyreek Hill, obviously. But
he's also coming off knee surgery here, right?
Right. An ACL. So it's going to take him a minute. But Jerry Jeudy has showed durability concerns. So should Jerry Jeudy get hurt, and now with Tim Patrick going down, Hamler could step into that second outside receiver role very easily. You could be looking at a guy who finishes wide receiver 24 to 32, somewhere in that range, depending on what happens. I mean, he's going so late. And it is kind of a dart throw, but okay, last season he averaged 14.8 yards per catch.
Yeah.
And that feeds to what Russell Wilson does. He had 81 throws of 20-plus yards last season. And look at they were not a good team.
I was actually kind of excited to see because the one thing Drew Lock does well is heave it. I was kind of excited to see Lock and Hamler together last year, and obviously Hamler got hurt. But, the nice thing here, and I mean, obviously he's going to be ascending after this Tim Patrick injury happened today, Fitz, but Hamler is basically free right now. And, you can get him for a late pick. You can get him for maybe a defense or a kicker even. That's the type of level. It's a late pick. It's a defense or kicker or someone on your bench. You just do not need a fifth quarterback, something, so I like the potential for Hamler to break out, specifically with Tim Patrick down now. So what do you think about Hamler moving forward?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, talk about a guy who was very readily available in dynasty leagues for a guy who was really, really good in college. And Nate mentioned the speed. I mean, this guy could just fly. I'm up here in Big Ten country. I watched a lot of Penn State, and man, does Hamler have some incredible wheels. So, and it'll be I don't know how that's going to work out, like who's going to play the slot and who's going to play outside with Judy and Hamler. We were talking about that, Andrew Erickson and Derek Brown and I I feel like they kind of think it's going to be Judy outside now, but who knows? It's going to be interesting. We do know that when they go three wide,
Hamler's going to be out there.
He's in line for a lot more snaps than he would have been otherwise. So he becomes very interesting, and maybe that's another buy low window that could close pretty quickly. Especially if we see Hamler turn on the Jets in a preseason game or something. Is he ready to go in the preseason? If
he's been cleared.
Yeah, if he plays and make some sort of big play, some sort of 70-yard catch or some little slant that he turns into a catch and run for a long touchdown, that price is just going to skyrocket quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of possibility there for Hamler, so I like that call, Nate. Fitz, up for your buy low number 3. Who we got?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with David Njoku, and I think he's just barely in the top 20 at tight end in our ECR for Dynasty.
19 right now.
19, yeah. So we know how athletic it is, and we have not seen the full breakout of this guy who was just such a tremendous prospect with his just raw measurables and how well he tested. Hasn't quite put it all together, but the Browns have committed to him with that 4-year contract. And here's what I kind of like. So we only got the 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson. We know he's going to be playing with Watson most of the season and, for the foreseeable future. And Watson's tight ends in Houston were just this collection of the dregs of the position.
They never had one, but he would throw it to whoever was out there.
Yeah, so listen to this. In 2018, it was Ryan Griffin, Jordan Thomas, and Jordan Akins. Those guys combined for 61 catches, 745 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2019, it was Akins and Daniel Fells. Those two combined for 70 catches, 759 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And then 2020, Akins, Fells, and Pharaoh Brown, 72 catches, 878 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson has been squeezing orange juice out of a bag of rocks with these tight ends. So what could he do with actually good tight ends? And he has 2 pretty good ones now in Njoku and Harrison Bryant. So Njoku's the number 1 guy here, and they don't have a lot of firepower receiver after Amari Cooper. So I'm pretty high on Njoku.
Yeah, and the only argument that I've heard against Njoku here is that when you run 2 tight end sets like the Browns do a bunch because they have that big running game that we talked about with Chubb and Kareem Hunt, is that they put 2 tight ends out there. Usually you have one blocking and send one out on a route. Now, Harrison Bryant can run routes and he can catch, but he cannot block. So Njoku is always getting the call to block in those 2 tight end sets, which really limits him. But now that he's going to have a competent quarterback that can throw to the tight end, even when Baker Mayfield was great with Mark Andrews at Oklahoma, Mark Andrews was split out as a slot wide receiver, not really a tight end. So, I think that you bring in a guy here that can get the ball to the tight end. It's going to improve Njoku a lot. So I do think he is a nice buy low option right now. So I'm going to agree with you on this one, Fitzy. Nate, what do you think about David Njoku moving forward?
I love this, and I've been talking about him all offseason, that he's the guy that you're going to want to go get. They gave him the new contract. He's physical. He's got great hands. We've seen him in waves get a fair amount of targets and do well with them. He could be a really solid red zone threat for this offense. I like that call a lot.
I think that's a solid one, Fitzy. My third guy here, I've got DJ Chark going off at wide receiver 64. And look, I know people probably are turning their nose up right now at DJ Chark, but it's buy low, right? And you don't get much lower than where Chark is right now at wide receiver 64. Another guy that is pretty much free. He's on a 1-year prove-it deal with the Lions, so he needs to be good to make himself some actual money. The thing that benefits Chark is that Jameson Williams does not have a timetable yet. He said earlier in, like when he got drafted, I want to be ready for week 1. That just does not look realistic. Dan Campbell has even mentioned how that is probably not realistic at all. He's probably going to have to start the year on the pup, which is, of course, 4 games now, not 6 games like it used to be, but still looks a little dicey. They have no reason to rush him back. They spent a high pick on him. No reason to throw him out there, and they're not in their Super Bowl window until they get rid of Jared Goff and improve that defense a lot. And when you look at Chark averaged 11.5 points per game in the 3 games he actually played. He's listed at 4, and his average was around 8, but he played like 2 snaps and got hurt in that last game. He had no catches. So I consider 3 games 11.5, and he scored 2 touchdowns, which made him, by the way, in those 3 games, you guys are going to laugh at this, he was second with two receiving touchdowns on the Jaguars. Marvin Jones had 4. DJ Chark had 2 in 3 games. Everybody else had 1 on that team. So just Patheticsville in Jacksonville. And he scored 2 touchdowns in 3 games. Who knows? Maybe Urban Meyer would still have a job if DJ Chark had lasted the whole year. I don't think he makes that big a difference. We can guess, right? But Chark has had a wide receiver 2 season recently. Within the last 3 years, in 2019, he finished as wide receiver 20, 15.05 points per game in PPR. And he's still only 25 going into the season. He'll turn 26 early in the season. But just look at this list of quarterbacks he's had. He had rookie Lawrence for 3 games in his first 3 games. He had combo of Minshew and Glennon, Minshew and Foles, and Bortles and Kessler. Jared Goff is going to be a massive upgrade to what DJ Chark has seen at the quarterback position, which feels like a crazy person is saying this and I need to be institutionalized or something, but it's true. They've had terrible QBs in Detroit. So, Fitz, what do you think about the potential of DJ Chark? Did my used car salesman pitch sell you at all there?
Oh, I loved it. I'm totally willing to buy into the fact that Urban Meyer was a super nice guy and had the locker room eating out of his hand until DJ Chark got hurt.
Ignore that part. What about the rest of it? Was the rest of it okay?
Chark's injury just changed his whole demeanor. It was amazing. I'm with you, man. I mean, like when he got into the league, I'm like, wow, this guy is really good. And now just because of this
situation, QB played LSU too. Sorry.
Right. Coming off the injury. Now, maybe people are perceiving that he's in a target pinch with Swift, Hawkinson, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, but he is the only big receiver around. I mean, Jameson's a smaller receiver. Amon-Ra's not that big. Chark is the one like king-sized receiver they have. And like, I don't think Goff is that bad, but it also might not be Goff next year. Who knows? It could be, someone, one of these, Stroud, Bryce Young. So yeah, I kind of like just buying into the talent, maybe knowing that you're not going to get like instant production. Chark's not going to be a guy you're automatically going to put in your lineup this year, but probably a guy who's going to be more valuable next year than he is right now. So I do like the buy low thing in Dynasty, especially if you're maybe rebuilding a little bit. Not a bad guy to aim for. Like you said, only 25. Good buy low target for sure.
Nate, what do you think of DJ Chark? Do you think he would have saved Urban Meyer's career and revived him?
Definitely. They had breakfast together every morning. It just broke Urban's heart, guys. That's what happened.
Of course.
DJ Chark's interesting to me because I've never been super high on him. But as you mentioned, he's had terrible quarterbacks. except for Gardner Minshew, I still like Gardner Minshew.
Come on, man.
How can you not like the dude with the bandana and the mullet?
Because he's not good. I mean, come on.
That's
He's
fair.
a great personality. Like, look, I'm number one Gardner Minshew fan if he goes to the WWE, right? But in the NFL, I don't know. So
I think this is good. I'm interested to see what happens. And at wide receiver 64, I'm willing to buy low on him because the upside's there. And the weirdest thing, when you said Jared Goff will be a massive upgrade, sentence I never thought I'd see talking fantasy football, but here we are, and you're not wrong. DJ Chark could have, if he can stay on the field, could have a career season, and we're talking 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, 100 catches. It wouldn't be crazy. I think everybody's too high on Amon-Ra. He's a great player situationally, but he's not a receiver who's taking over an offense.
he's a solid number 2. I think he's going to be perfect next to Jameson, right? Mm-hmm. And he had big stretches last season for sure, so he can improve. But I mean, I think 64 is almost free in most leagues. That's free, even in dynasty leagues. So that was my thought process with Chark. So Nate, who is the last buy low that you have for us today?
So this one's interesting, and I've seen some people talk about him. Not many. I'm probably higher on him than most, but I like the rookie tight end in New York, Daniel Bellinger. I did a profile on him for FantasyPros this offseason, and something that struck me that I kept reading about him was his footwork, and his blocking is exceptional, which will keep him on the field. They loved going to Evan Ingram for who knows why they kept throwing to Evan Ingram last season. But now Daniel Bellinger can take over that role. It's not going to be Ricky Seals-Jones. They drafted this kid for a reason. They got him late. He's tight end 43. He's probably not rostered in your league unless you're in a league with me.
Yeah.
Right.
They're paying you to get him on the roster.
Well, exactly. He's 6'5". He's going to be a big red zone target for Daniel Jones. What they tried to get Evan Ingram to be, but he couldn't catch the ball. And I want to go back to the blocking. He's efficient as a run blocker and a pass blocker. He could be on the field almost every down in this offense.
I absolutely love this call, Nate. Watching Daniel Bellinger's film coming in, you're like, man, why didn't they throw him the ball more? Like, he can catch, but they had terrible QBs at San Diego State. They're a run first, play hard-nosed defense and get some RBs. That's Rashad Penny, Donald Pumphrey, all these, San Diego State backs that have come into the NFL and made an impact. There's a list of them. But Bellinger completely underutilized, and he goes to New York where Evan Ingram's gone. Ricky Seals-Jones is a receiving tight end. He's not a blocking tight end. Right. And there's nothing else really on this roster that is exciting at this position. He could be the guy that leads the Giants in snaps at that position. It would not be shocking. Little worry that he started the preseason or training camp on the pup, but they've already taken him off of that Fitz. So I like this call from Nate about Daniel Bellinger. We've mentioned him a couple times on the show here. What do you think about Bellinger?
I like the call too, and maybe he did get drafted in some rookie drafts in tight end premium leagues, but I know in my home league, there was a waiver run the other day, and someone picked up Bellinger, and I was kind of thinking like, oh, wait, he didn't get drafted? Yeah, I guess that's right. He didn't. So someone else is thinking the same thing Nate is thinking here. And yeah, like there's been some pretty good buzz about him. Minimal competition at tight end, and reason to be optimistic that we're going to see improved things out of the Giants offense under Brian Daboll. So I like this call. Yeah.
I like it a lot too. Fitzy, who's the last player that you have as a buy low here?
All right. Nyheim Hines, a guy who I've gotten sort of increasingly interested in. I think there's a little question that he's going to get more work with Matt Ryan at quarterback than he got with Carson Wentz, who really didn't throw to his backs very often. I see something maybe along the lines of what Hines did in his season with Phillip Rivers in 2020, which was like 862 yards from scrimmage, 7 touchdowns. Look, this guy's not going to be a league winner. He doesn't have feature back upside. He's just not going to be that guy. If Jonathan Taylor went down, they're not going to like start Hines and play him on 70% of the snaps. He's just not that guy, but he's a useful player in PPR leagues for sure. Like he is I like to refer to him as a spackle back. Like you have injury problems, you have a guy bust on you at running back. Like Hines is a guy who can stick in there and just tread water with him at one of the running back spots and let other guys in your lineup win. So not a league winner, but still only 25 years old. And I think he, can be pretty useful in just that sort of limited role. So I'm not saying he's going to turn into some superstar for you, but very useful and just completely overlooked in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, and interesting right now, like you mentioned, I think he's actually moved up one spot since I looked at this last night to in dynasty leagues. PPR also, ECR 52 among RBs. The guys just ahead of him are Gainwell, Patterson, Zamir White, Gus Edwards, McKissick, and Sony Michel. I don't think it is a question that he is more talented than everybody that I just mentioned there. My big concern with Nyheim Hines, I've said it on many different shows that I've done, is that it's just so hard to get Taylor off the field. And sure, you can stick Hines at the slot. He can do that. I don't know if that's something you'd ask him to do on a regular basis or if that would be around a certain type of game plan against a certain type of coverage and defense. But my worry about Hines is that just JT is the best around. I would love, like, if Nyheim Hines was in Houston, I would be super high on him. Atlanta, Kansas City, just any of these places where you could see you drop in Nyheim Hines and he's the best back, and you let him go do all of it because he was great in college. But this one I can't buy into because I just don't know how often he's going to be on the field. Look, but Frank Reich even said,
yes,
buy in on this guy if you're a fantasy
he said
person.
I would want him on my fantasy, or if I was, if I played fantasy, I would want Nyheim Hines on my team.
I just heard too much lip service from coaches before, particularly Reich, to be excited about Nyheim Hines. So Nate, you're the deciding vote here on Nyheim Hines. Are you in or out on this buy low?
This is another one where I'm kind of indifferent. I mean, at cost, I don't hate it at all. I'm with you, Scott, where I'm concerned how much he's really going to get involved because it's Jonathan Taylor. And don't forget they signed Philip Lindsay. So there's that too.
I mean, I'm a Philip Lindsay guy. Look, you got to stick up for your guy. You got the Colorado Buffs pennant in the background. I understand it.
Lindsay
non-factor.
He's the small back who doesn't catch passes well, though. I mean, that's the thing.
But at least he fumbles all the time because his wrist is permanently hurt. So, there you go. But look, Nyheim Hines has the talent. I don't think anybody would doubt that. So, but I think I'm where Nate is simply for the fact that JT is in front of him.
Yeah.
I want to be high, but I'm lukewarm because of the scenario. I looked at his contract because I was like, maybe if he's done after this year, then let's go ahead. He's not a free agent until 2025. So he's stuck behind JT for what looks like the best years of JT's career, which is also tough. Not saying he can get traded. He could get released. He could go to a different scenario. That's all possibilities. But I'm just not into that one as much as other people are. Although, anything happens to JT, I'm going to look like a silly goose. I know that. I mean, Nyheim Hines is going to go buck wild there. So I would, I'd like to see him just in a longer opportunity. I just think it's like, anybody sitting behind CMC, anybody sitting behind Dalvin Cook, you just become irrelevant. It doesn't mean you are irrelevant. It means that you're not sniffing, you're not holding a candle to one of the best backs in the league. That's my issue with Nyheim Hines. And, if I didn't set you up to just crush me for my last one here, Fitzy, I know a lot of people are going to just hard eye roll here, but let's just think about it. My last guy is a little conditional too. You have to be situational. You have to be in the right spot to acquire him, but it's Calvin Ridley at wide receiver 52. Now, I don't know, when the best time to buy Ridley is, but if you're a team and probably out of it this year, I'm not going to be playing for a championship, that is a scenario where I want to go get Calvin Ridley because he had the stuff. You can agree or disagree with his suspension, but he's gone for a year. Also, a little questionable because he just went away from the team last year, which is why he thought he could bet on football because he wasn't with the team. So guy has made some weird decisions. So we don't know when the suspension is up, if he's going to go back. He expressed, concern about playing with the Falcons too. So there's a lot of factors going around him. But let's just look at him as a talent, right? He has never finished lower than 13 points per game in his seasons. His wide receiver points per game finishes are 25th, 4th, 19th, and 28th. So he is finishing as a high-end wide receiver 3 at least every single season of his career, and went to number 4 2 seasons ago in 2019. The Falcons will most likely have a high pick to get a franchise-level QB, or they will be convinced that either Mariota or Ritter are the future here. And if that's the case, that guy had a great season, right? Otherwise, I mean, if I had to bet my hard-earned cash right now, it would probably be that the Falcons have the number 1 pick in the draft. Seattle could say, hold my beer, I think as well. But Atlanta's a pretty trash roster at this point. Let's just say he's not with the Falcons. Let's get him somewhere else. Where does he go? That's not better than Atlanta. There's not many spots he could go that aren't an improvement on this situation as well. He's not young, but he'll be 28 at the end of the season after missing this is a double-edged sword. You miss a year and a half, you're definitely going to have rust coming back, but you also don't put that wear and tear on your body. So, it's a double-edged sword in terms of his age and stuff when he's coming back. And he's a lottery ticket, and he's going to be the absolute cheapest he could possibly be right now, unless he just says, I'm done with the NFL. I'm tired of being yanked around, and he retires, which, look, you can squint and see it. Like, you can see positivity in a lot of these guys we've talked today. You can squint and see the bad side, too, on a lot of them here. So it's a possibility, but if you're out of it, he's cheap. He's not going to cost you much at all. You may get him cheaper if you wait into the season and you trade a piece that you're not going to keep or isn't a long-term option for you for someone for a playoff run or something. So it is situational, but he is a buy low. So Fitz, what do you think about buying Calvin Ridley low? Are you interested, or are you turning your nose up at it?
No, I mean, if you're a rebuilding team, or if maybe you think you're a contender and then you open 1-5 and you've got Calvin Ridley sitting on your roster, so like he would be a good target for you if you are in a rebuild, because whoever has him might be willing to take a useful older piece. Like maybe if Marvin Jones turns out to be the Jaguars' top receiver and is having a productive year, well, obviously, like Marvin Jones is in the twilight of his career for sure, and maybe you could flip Marvin Jones for Ridley if Jones is doing well, or some other older player.
If Chark is playing well, flip him for Ridley. You know what I mean? Like,
if Chark's playing well, then I'd rather have Chark.
I think you'd rather have Chark. I mean, that's fair.
The concern, Boggs, like, I don't know if like Ridley is serious about football.
Look, that's
like,
a huge concern
question
too.
That, man. I mean, like the mental health thing. I mean, that's totally fine, man. I can understand that.
Of course, yeah.
But then, like, like the gambling thing, and you don't know that that's like possibly going to become an issue. Like, that's just terrible judgment. Kind of makes me question your dedication to your craft and your seriousness about your, what should be your vocation. So I do have some concerns about that, but it is possible he comes back and he's just the same Calvin Ridley we saw before.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot surrounding this, Nate, but what do you think about potentially buying low on Calvin Ridley this season?
If I have a deeper roster, I've got a couple leagues where I have like 20, 25 bench spots, because I know some people who love to be crazy commissioners with those.
IDP leagues, maybe? IDP leagues?
Not all of them. Couple IDP like that, but I have some standard super flex ones like that as well. If I've got a deeper roster, I'm fine with it. But kind of to what Pat said, we don't know how serious the guy is about football. The mental health thing, like, take time off, get your head right, but don't go gamble on the sport that you play. Like, it's kind of like the Josh Gordon thing. Like, you may or may not think it's serious, but the league thinks it's serious enough to suspend him multiple times, and he keeps doing it. I am more in the camp. I don't think we see Calvin Ridley on an NFL field again.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So you're all the way out. You're not buying him because you think it's done. And look, it's a fair thought process, man. I'm not trying to convince people one way or the other. We're also not the moral police on the suspension and all that stuff. We're just dealing in the facts. He is suspended for a year. He did have issues last year. You do have to question his intensity and his want to in terms of football, because, if you don't want to, you won't. It's not everyone is as talented as you for the most part when you get to the NFL. So if you're not passionate about it, you're not working towards it, you are not going to last long. So that is a more than fair argument here. My thought process is like the guy's super talented, and he still is available. And if your team's bad, somebody doesn't want to carry him in a roster spot. It's very rare where you have a guy that's suspended that can go into the IR and NA or whatever minor league system you may have for your league. But some leagues do have that. So it's just a thought. If you're tanking, maybe add Calvin Ridley as a flyer. So we'll see. But that's it. That is buy lows for us on the Dynasty Fantasy Pros podcast. You can follow Fitz at Fitz_FF. Fitzy, what do you got coming up here this week?
Oh, man, we have everything coming up, Boggs. I mean, August is such an insane month for content at Fantasy Pros. I mean, pretty much no matter what you're into, like, Devy, Dynasty, Redraft, auction advice, salary cap leagues. Like, there's something for everyone. Of course, a lot of player analysis. We're just rolling out tons of content. It's our busiest month of the season, of the year by far, for articles. So check Fantasy Pros. We'll have new stuff up every day.
And Nate at Nate Polvogt, Polvogt on the Twitter. Nate, what do you got coming up this week and for the rest of the time leading up to the season here?
This is actually an oddly quiet week. This is kind of the end of what I am required to do this week.
The storm.
Calm before the storm. I'll have my offensive line rankings updated here ahead of the season here in a couple weeks. Firing up the In-Between Fantasy Football podcast again, getting ready to do that every week. So lots coming.
How low are the Steelers on those offensive line rankings there, Nate? Are they pretty low?
I think I had them at 26.
All right, doesn't start with a
27.
Very generous, Nate. Very generous.
Shut up, Pat. You don't know. Nate's doing the analysis here on the offensive line. Okay, so that is. I'm looking forward to that because that's a big part of it. It's an underrated part of fantasy too. Is you got to know who these guys are running behind because sometimes Najee Harris running behind nobody. Last year, that most of his production came out of short passes and stuff like that, or third and long, and they run it up the gut, stuff like that. So you got to know. I'm looking forward to that article for sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Bogman Sports. Obviously, I have this show running through the end of the training camp here in the preseason with Fitzy, and Joe and I will be starting our IDP show at the end of this month, as well as our Thor and I, our college football betting show for betting pros. And you can catch all my stuff over in this league. Of course, we're doing Mondays. We're doing best balls. Mondays, I also do my Discord for Fantasy Pros, my stages. So you guys can check that out. It was hopping last night. I did it. We're getting busier. Like you said, Fitz, the season is upon us. So I'm getting a lot of good questions here, which kind of sparked my Calvin Ridley thought on this show as well. So please join me for that. Listen to all my ITL stuff, CFP Winning Edge, ITL CFF, Individual Defensive Podcast with Gary Davenport. You can find me. Just go look at my Twitter. I'm doing all kinds of shows. If you like my voice, you can hear me there for sure. But that is it for us. We will see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.